Finally, relevant talk. Where you hold the microphone. America's first competition talk show. You're in the hub.
Jackson, did you order the code red?
You don't have to answer that question.
I'll answer the question. You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth. I can't lie.
We're on the show. Leak is on. It's the end of the year. Whitney's back. Say hi, Whitney.
Hi.
Hi. And Monica, who's a professional. She knows. She gets inside people's
She has a profession.
For a living, she gets inside people's heads. There's a story out of Harvard recently. A guy named Adam Wheeler. He was a 24-year-old college student. He lied, cheated his way to the top, to being admitted to Harvard University, prestigious institution, and basically received about $45,000 in grants and scholarships to Harvard. He got admitted to the school, and come to find out about a year into this just recently, the administration catches on to him and realizes that he fabricated virtually everything he submitted in getting into the school. He actually went further than that. Once he got into Harvard, he applied for a Rhodes scholarship, and he applied for a Fulbright scholarship, and he didn't know when to stop. And I've got to throw this out there because you see these kind of stories more and more these days. You think about what's been going on in Congress for the last few years, the Congressional Black Caucus, and names like Charlie Rangel and Maxine Waters and Laura Richardson a few years back on leveraging her house to pay for her congressional run. You think, where does this stop? I mean, at some point, does a person like an Adam Wheeler character, is he just a pathological liar? Can you really write off this type of behavior as just there's a synapses not connecting in your head, or is this environmental? Should he really get off that easy? Yeah.
I found it interesting when I was reading the article. He didn't really, he apologized, but honestly, he got away with murder before, and he kept on just thinking, oh, well, if nobody catches me, I'll just keep on, doing more and more and applying for a Rhodes Scholarship and stuff like that, which that sounds like a narcissist to me, because narcissists, they tend to be really insecure, but then they'll just keep on lying, and they basically shame causes them to apologize.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, in terms of social or not, it could be a lot of things. There are definitely studies showing that parental factors definitely influence, certain outcomes. So it could just be all of the above, honestly. But there's definitely some genetic.
But the
too.
guy. It's not like he. And this is the thing. Some of these folks. This is why I think it might be pathological. They cheat when they don't even have to. This guy had a pretty impressive pedigree at MIT, which is nothing to sneeze at, and yet he did this anyway.
Wait, I thought that was fabricated too.
Well,
MIT run. And he filled out his
supposedly the article says he actually went had an academic record at MIT.
Oh,
he actually had a record at MIT that was pretty good, and yet it wasn't enough for him.
Well, I think
Whitney?
it's the thrill of the lie. Like, he was just excited. Every time he was tricking somebody, it felt good.
It's like a game.
It was very good. It was good to give me a tingly feeling.
Well, that's got to be what it is, because it wasn't like he was looking for the Harvard degree and just was settled with that. Every time he got away with it, there was something else that he would lie about to see if he could get away with that.
Is it easier now because it's just more and more accessible, because technology has made lying so much easier? Honestly, I can get my Kindle, copy, paste, and write a thesis paper. And if I go from enough different sources, they might not catch me.
But isn't technology supposed to have made lying that much harder also?
Exactly,
you can do all the plagiarism checks. You can run background checks on these people so easily. How did Harvard get the wool pulled over their eyes?
You got to wonder, should we really be indicting Wheeler or Harvard here? Leak.
Well, actually, I refuse to engage in too much bad pop psychology with a real professional at the table. But there are a couple of questions that come up. Is it, do you cross the line from pathological liar to sociopath once the lies hurt somebody? Because I think back to, the old days of being a cop or being a young Cold Warrior. There were plenty of people in the Kremlin who weren't willing to pull a trigger, but they were willing to give the order to, knowing the full width and breadth of the consequences. So
Yeah.
Trotsky's not going to pull a trigger, but he knows all those guys he hangs out with would.
Yeah, the backstory. I mean, it's been controversial in history, the history around World War I for a long time. Winston Churchill, great hero in Britain. They don't like to talk about it, but the rumor goes that he was sitting there at the helm, theoretically speaking, metaphorically speaking, from a distance when the Lusitania was sank, knowing full well what was going on and what he was guiding the ship into.
Exactly,
it's a provocative act, but he wanted he wanted America in the conflict.
And now on a totally different track, you see a guy who lies, and for a lot of us, the risks involved, the consequences of that lie are enough to deter us. Either from a spiritual standpoint, we just think it's wrong to lie, or we're afraid, or just quite frankly, selfishly, we're afraid to get caught. There's some people who engage in risky activity, and where they just have a different mathematical equation in their brain. They more heavily weight the excitement. They don't weight the negative,
the repercussions of it.
All it is encapsulated by discussions of risk aversion. How risk averse are you? There are people out there who just they're gunslingers, man. And even if it's not physically risky, they double down on the market, or they go gamble, and their mind does not really get preoccupied with the consequences of losing all that money, but all they think about is the upside. Likewise, this guy, what happens if I get caught? Not really paying attention to it, but if I don't get caught, then everyone thinks I'm the smartest guy. I get this Fulbright, I get this Rhodes Scholarship, what have you.
Exactly,
it's really interesting.
The classic ethical.
I am the risk averse guy.
I
wouldn't.
If you're analytical, do the numbers add up?
I don't want to be George O'Leary.
At the end of the day, though, I wonder. You're right. It's that classic ethical dilemma. Does the end justify the means? There are a lot of folks that say, well, hey, look at the job market now. Look at the fact that it's so hard to get in. I mean, at some point, cut corners a little bit here and there, posture myself one way where maybe I'm not quite up to par with that. But at the end of the day, hey, if I'm going for a position of authority and I'm able to make decisions once I get in the door that affect people positively, was it all good in the end? Monica, how do you kind of resolve something like that?
I mean, we all do it on some level. It's just the question of the extent of how we do it. So that's it. Actually, you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of like Leonardo DiCaprio in Catch Me If You Can. I mean, he got away with murder, but at the same time, he was brilliant. He actually was able to lie really well, but then he also passed the bar on his own. Like, he was able to do that. So.
You're the person that crawls up inside people's heads for a living. How do you, and sometimes enjoy it in there, probably more times it's kind of stuffy, I would imagine. But how do you spot a liar? What are some of the warning signs? I mean, is it just, we talked about compulsive lying versus sociopath. I mean, I'm imagining a sociopath is more of a person that just doesn't have any regard for humanity whatsoever. They just don't have that normal respect factor. And a chronic liar, or is compulsive liar is really someone who just lies out of habit. I mean, when you look at it, though, how do you know somebody? How do you know you're walking into a situation where I can like this person, but I wouldn't trust this person?
I mean, there's different ways that you can look at this. Like, honestly, one thing that we're taught is to never judge, because you never know, and there's always a surprise. But there are little things. There's behavior clues, like your posture, like which direction you look, because if you look one way, it accesses the left side of your brain, and that's like you're regurgitating facts and stuff like that. I know forensic psychologists, they do that kind of thing a lot. But honestly, when push comes to shove, I hate saying it, we truly never know. Yeah. I mean,
until
people
after
can
the fact.
be pretty darn good liars.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, you've got a character like Adam Wheeler. If you are going to reach a point where you are pathological and you're lying like this, you've got to first effectively lie to yourself before you can ever lie to everyone around you. We'll see you tomorrow.